Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Adam W. Rodriguez, and I am your host here at the Art of AWR. Today, I'm going to be doing my second ever book haul video. So, I usually pick up books one at a time, two at a time throughout the month. I order some from eBay, and every 2 months I go to my local comic book shop and get my comic books that I have put aside. And right there in that same parking lot is my half-price bookstore. So I go over there and shop for a few extra used books and bring everything home. And by then I've collected a few books that I've had mailed here, and by then I have a decent sized book haul, and so probably every 2 months you'll be getting book haul videos. I'm really excited to jump into it. I have a sweet little stack of books that I'm happy to share. But before I begin, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel. If you like books, if you like videos about books, literature, comic books, creativity in general, subscribe to my channel. Give this video a like and then hit that bell so that you get new notifications every time a new episode drops. Awesome. Yeah, it's fun. Do it. All right, cool. Let's talk about what I've been picking up. I noticed a small bit of partitioning theming here. Let's start with comic books. But I have comic books. I have a little bit of sci-fi. I picked up a stack of banned books, which was kind of unconscious, but yeah, banned books. And then I picked up some scary books for Halloween, October time, and I'm going to try to do it kind of in that order, if I remember what that order was. We're going to start with comic books. So, let's start with this one. My last book haul video, I talked about Moonknight by a guy named Jeb McKay, a writer who I've just recently discovered and think he's quite great. But that run has ended with the 15th issue that has already dropped. But now some new Moonknights have dropped, and this one is called Moonknight, Black, White, and Blood. And each issue is written by different guys. This here first issue is Schultz and Lopez. And then as you move through each individual issue, you can see that the writing and art team has changed, which is really interesting. I've never read a Moonknight book that I didn't like. He's usually one of those characters who doesn't get like an ongoing series that goes on forever. It's usually something where a writer comes in and says, "Oh, I got me a great Moonknight idea." They pitch it and they run it. This one is interesting because it's different writers for each issue. I wonder if each issue is a standalone. I'm not really sure because I haven't really started tearing into it. Now that the 5th issue has dropped, I'm going to go ahead and start reading it so that I can kind of binge read, because I've been spoiled completely by binge watching and streaming services. But that's the way I like to read my comics. I like to read them like 5 at a time so I can like just get it all in. I don't like to forget it from the previous month and have to reread it. Anyway, that's just the way it is, man. It's just the way it is. Let's move on. So that's Moonknight, Blood, or Black, White, and Blood. Super cool. Let's look at some of the new stuff. Check this out. Maskerade by Kevin Smith. I've actually missed out on most of the Kevin Smith books, and I've heard that they were pretty good, or at least well received. I know he did some Green Arrow, he did some Daredevil, he did some Batman books, but this one is called Maskerade, and it's all new stuff. It's all original content. These aren't characters that have been established already. These are Kevin Smith characters, and I read this very first issue. It was pretty cool. It's a solid beginning. And I'm looking forward to reading some more. I like Kevin Smith in general. Most of his movies I tend to like. The ones that I don't like are for, my own kind of reasons. I know he gets heavily criticized a lot, but I actually quite enjoy his content. It's the kind of stuff that I feel like I would want to write. You know what I mean? So I like Kevin Smith. He's cool. And I'm looking forward to reading his new comics. Next. Something semi-new, I guess. The Savage Avengers has a new team. The all-new Savage Avengers. My very first book review was a comic book review for Savage Avengers, the original team. But this is the new team. And I've never heard of some of these dudes. But the ones I have heard of are Cloak and Dagger, Deathlock, the cyborg from the future, Daredevil, who is now Elektra, in the Daredevil suit, which I'm pretty excited about. Black Knight and Conan, who was in the original team. And then there are two new guys. This guy is called like Anti-Venom, I think. I've never really heard of him. What was his name? Agent Anti-Venom. I don't know who he is or what he's about. I'm a relatively casual comic book reader, so it's new. I'm excited to see what Agent Anti-Venom is like. And then you got this cat over here. He's called Weapon H. Sometimes he's also called Hulk Vereen because he's this weird combination of the Incredible Hulk and Wolverine. So I'm just like, this is silly. I'm totally here for it. I'm going to read some of these books. So anyway, the first 5 of these have dropped. So I'm about to finally start tearing into these and seeing if I like it. Usually, if the first run is like really, really popular, they'll do another series and see if they can keep selling books. So I'm going to go into it with kind of a low expectation, and hopefully it'll come out great. I really enjoyed the first run of Savage Avengers, so I'm happy to give it a shot. Next, another comic, new comic, Frankenstein by Mike Mignola. So Mike Mignola is the guy who created Hellboy. If you don't know Hellboy, you should definitely read some of that. But there was some movies with Ron Perlman. They're wonderful stories. Mike Mignola, he has this wonderful art style, and I love his writing as well. He likes to delve into like historic stuff and public domain characters. And among the public domain characters in this one is Frankenstein. I like it. It's Frankenstein in the New World. Anytime an author and a IP or intellectual property come together, I almost always buy the book. And Frankenstein and Mike Mignola is just such a combination. So I'm really excited. I love Frankenstein. I've actually written some fiction based off of Frankenstein, and it's cool that he's Frankenstein New World. And as I sifted through some of these, it's him and kind of this lost world. There's dinosaurs and pterodactyls all over the place, which is awesome because some of the stuff that I wrote is actually Frankenstein at the center of the earth, which is the At Earth's Core storyline from Edgar Rice Burroughs, because it's kind of public domain as well. And I'm mixing the storylines of Frankenstein at Earth's core. I even did some illustrations here. Check that out. Yeah, I like it, right? It's like Frankenstein hanging out with this kind of tubby Tyrannosaurus Rex. Great minds thinking alike. Ain't that cool? So yeah, Frankenstein, New World. I'm looking forward to reading this. Mike Mignola is great. And finally, my last comic that I have been purchased is Jughead, The Hunger. So this came out a while back. I just started reading some reviews about it, and I'm like, I've got to read this. So I went on eBay and tried to find all the back issues for it. I think there was only like 13 issues. I've got the first 3 or 4, and I'm slowly picking up all the rest. But it's Jughead Jones from Archie Comics. I love it when they take old intellectual properties and just darken them up a little bit. There was this series on Netflix called Riverdale, and it's just the same characters: Jughead Jones, Archie, Betty, and Veronica, and they are in Riverdale, but they've turned Riverdale into sort of a Twin Peaks kind of place, right? Lots of weird, mysterious deaths and secret organizations and stuff like that. So it's pretty great, and I enjoyed the heck out of the series. And usually I'm not into that kind of like teen series, type of thing, but like the overall story arc was quite compelling, quite interesting, and I loved it. So I like that kind of stuff when they take old IPs and make them dark. So they've taken Jughead Jones and turned him into a werewolf, and he's this, mad beast man who goes around slaying people. What's not to like? What's not to like? Jughead Jones is always eating, right? He's always hungry. The Hunger. That's why they call it The Hunger. It's great. I love it. I love werewolves. Werewolves are awesome. Nice. That was all of the comic books that I have purchased in this book haul. Next, what did I say? I think I was going to talk about some sci-fi that I picked up. All right, cool. So, novels, sci-fi. Out of Time's Abyss. I guess I was just talking about Edgar Rice Burroughs. This is the 3rd book in the Caspak trilogy. Actually, I'd picked up the first 2 books randomly at a half-price books a couple of years ago, and these are the first 2. The Lost Continent and the People That Time Forgot. These books are pretty interesting. I actually thought these guys were going to end up being kind of like throwaway pulp books, but they ended up being really, really cool. What I really like about this is it came out in 1918, and it reads like a person has discovered anthropology and is totally fascinated by it and melded a story around it. And this is like turn of the century. So this is like the age of like Margaret Mead and Franz Boas, who are these founder figures of like modern anthropology. I mean, anthropology has existed for a long time, but right around the turn of the century is when it became a little bit more academic. Like you started seeing more and more universities having classes in anthropology and stuff like that. So like more textbooks were out, and people like Edgar Rice Burroughs were obviously reading anthropology, because these books have got a lot of stuff about like early man and evolution, and they like to show the evidence of those concepts. And then of course when you get to Out of Time's Abyss, you see some dude with leathery wings showing up. So of course it's going beyond evolution and into some sweet sci-fi Lost World style storytelling, which is Edgar Rice Burroughs' bread and butter. I quite like his writing. I've read much of his books. So first book in my haul is Out of Time's Abyss. Great name. So the other sci-fi book that I picked up, I had this one. I ordered it off of eBay because like it's one of those things where I'm surprised I haven't read it already. Like all of my friends like mock me for not have reading it. I haven't reading it yet. For not reading it yet. And that is The Neuromancer by William Gibson. This book is considered one of the forefathers of the cyberpunk genre. I've read some cyberpunk, I've read like Neil Stephenson and lots of comic books that are based in and around cyberpunk. I've read some Philip K. Dick that has some cyberpunk aspects in some of his stories. But I haven't read The Neuromancer, so I'm really, really looking forward to reading it. Maybe in January. I was thinking about having a kind of sci-fi themed January. But that's all the sci-fi that I've picked up. Now let's talk about nonfiction right quick, so get it over with. Like I said, I'm a student right now of anthropology, and I'm taking a history course, and this is my history textbook, American Stories. And I'm not going to mention too much about it, other than these are broad swaths of history. Within 100 pages, I got from, migrating across the Bering Strait, straight up to early America, right before the British started taxing the heck out of the colonists. Anyway, it's like I said, very broad swaths. But what I do like about this book is that the preface of it makes sure to mention that history is seen through the lens of the victor. So the people in these histories that didn't come out on top are often underrepresented historically, and it's kind of your responsibility to go out and learn a little bit more about it. This history class is going to give you some very, very, like I said, broad swaths. You're going to get some dates, you're going to get some concepts, but you're not going to get the details. And I know people know this. I'm not trying to preach to you that, hey, history is more than just one textbook. But I like that the textbook is making sure to remind you of that. I remember I took history classes back in the 90s when I was younger, and the book didn't tell me that. My teachers sometimes did, but the book certainly didn't tell you that. So I'm glad that our books have evolved and decided to remind you, hey, there's a lot more to this story than just these broad swaths that you're reading here in this book. So one other nonfiction book that I picked up is this one right here. It is called Anglos and Mexicans. In the Making of Texas from 1836 to 1986. This book is by David Montejano. This is a book. They gave us a list of books that we have to do a report on. This was the book that kind of stuck out to me. It has a lot of things that I'm very, very interested in. I myself am a native Texan. I was born and raised here, so I like Texas history, and I'm half Mexican. So I like the idea of reading a book that emphasizes the contributions of Texicans, Texas Mexicans, in the sculpting of Texas when it became its own country, and the history, leading after the Revolution. 1836 is the Texas Revolution, or at least close to the end of it. So I'm really, really interested to read about more Mexican aspects of Texas and how it integrates with the Anglos of Texas. I took a lot of Texas history classes. Like I said, I was born and raised here. It took a long time for me to finally hear any of the real Mexican contributions to Texas. Like, I remember, like, early middle school, high school, most of the time the only Mexican anybody could name was Juan Seguin, and that was about it. But at my first year, I went back to school in 2013 for a while to learn video game design. And in that period, I took a history course in Texas. My Spanish professor, my Mexican professor, was very, very adamant about teaching us more about Mexican contributions. And it was fascinating, some of the stuff that he was talking about. And once again, these are broad swaths. I needed to go find other literature to read to really emphasize more or learn more. So this is an opportunity for me to learn more about Texicans and Anglos living together in Texas and how things panned out. I'm going on a long time about this. I'm planning on doing a book review of it because I am going to have to do kind of a deep dive for my class. So I'm going to know ins and outs of this book hopefully by December-ish. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Anyway, that's all of the nonfiction. Oh my gosh, nobody wants to know about nonfiction, Adam. Come on, move on. Let's talk about banned books. Banned books. Now, I live in Texas. We love to ban books in Texas. Oh my God. I think Florida is the only one who bans more books, and that's like just nothing to be proud of. Guys, why ban books, man? Just don't read the dang thing. Why you keep banning books? Don't do it. Banning books is bad. Historically, people who ban books are not cool, so be cool, man. Be cool. So, like I said, this is kind of accidentally too. I just bought these books at Half Price Books, and I was like, oh wow, these are all on the banned books list. So let's start off with my first banned book, Animal Farm by George Orwell. I picked up 1984 in my last book haul, and it made me want to pick up Animal Farm. This actually looks like the actual edition that I read back in middle school. I remember liking it. I remember the drama being really, really cool. I love fable-esque tales. I mean, talking animals just works on me. It works on me. I'm like, oh, the animals are talking. Now I'm listening really hard. So thank you, George Orwell, for writing Animal Farm. I remember liking it a lot, and I'm looking forward to reconnecting with this book, especially now that I'm a little bit older and a little bit more savvy politically. So, awesome. First banned book, George Orwell's Animal Farm. Next banned book, here we go. Check out that cover. Look at that. It's a dude with a flamethrower burning books. I mean, come on! Look at we got some neat themes in today's book haul, you guys. But I love this cover. It's so great. When I go to Half Price Books, usually these really old covers with a whole bunch of damage on them, they tend to be a little cheaper, and I'm super happy about it because I, A, love having a less expensive book, but B, these covers are so rad. I love the artwork. Anyway, 451, Fahrenheit 451. I read a lot of Ray Bradbury, but I have not read this book. I remember I read 1984 and then just thought I didn't have to read Fahrenheit 451. And I've already read the dystopian, the government bad book. So, but I realize, it must be, it's its own entity, man, and I should read this one as well. Plus, I love Ray Bradbury. He's got to be one of my favorite authors of that time period, and I'm really looking forward to it. So that's banned book number 2, and I've got one other banned book that I picked up, and that is The Trial by Franz Kafka. I really like Kafka. He was an acquired taste for me. I read The Metamorphosis a long time ago, and I was just like, wow, that was a thing, and I read that. And then I started reading some of his short stories, because I got like an anthology up there. And he started becoming funnier the older I got. Like, the more the absurdism and melancholy just started to make me like laugh. And now that I know that Franz Kafka, I think, kind of intended to be funny, the more I enjoy his work. Now, The Trial, it often ends up on people who like Franz Kafka. They tend to put The Trial in like their top threes almost every time. And, significantly, The Metamorphosis is seldomly on their top three. So I think I need to read this bad boy. And it's a banned book, yet another banned book here in Texas. So I just have the urge to read it. The best way to get me to read a book is to tell me, you can't read this. The hell with that. I'm going to read that mother. All right, cool. We got 2 books left, you guys. And those are my spooky season books. Here we go. I found this one at the Half Price Book. Last few times I've been trying to find it, and I finally found a copy of Stephen King's Pet Sematary. I have not read this book. I've read a lot of Stephen King. I haven't read Pet Sematary. Actually, after I watched the movie, I was just like, well, I guess I really don't need to read that. I know exactly what the heck is going to happen. But a lot of folks who love Stephen King put this in their top 5. Like, Pet Sematary is one of their favorite books. And I feel like I should read it now. And on top of that, a lot of folks credit it as a great book that thematically deals with grief and loss. And, I'm turning 50, and, losing family members and friends is becoming a little bit more common, and it's only, going to get worse. So, like, the idea of something kind of cathartic about loss and grief sounds kind of refreshing. Although I don't know how cathartic this is going to be, really. I mean, burying the dead in a graveyard so they come back all wrong might not be the catharsis I'm looking for. But hey, who knows? Maybe it is. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna give it a try. I'm looking forward to the damage, baby. Yeah. Pet Sematary. I'm probably gonna read this one in late October, closer to Halloween. But my other spooky book and the last book in my book haul is this one, A Werewolf in Paris. See, I love werewolf fiction. I mean, I just bought that Jughead fiction werewolf book. I want to read more werewolf fiction, and I've found some. And for the most part, I like it. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But this book in particular, The Werewolf of Paris, is hailed as the Bram Stoker's Dracula of werewolf literature. So that and that alone makes me go, I'm picking that up and I'm reading that bad boy, because I love foundational work. I love work that has influenced werewolf lore, werewolf fiction, and this is supposed to be that particular book. So I'm really looking forward to it. This is probably going to be my early October read, and we'll see where it goes. I've never heard of Guy Endore or Guy Endor. So I don't know what I'm in for as far as the writer is concerned. I have read like brief synopses of the book itself, and yeah, it sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to it, and you'll be getting a book review from this bad boy, whether I likes it or not. I'm sure I will, because it'll have a werewolf in it. Awesome. And that is my book haul. Wow, that felt short. It really wasn't. Awesome. So I got a lot of other book reviews coming down the line. Just give me a little bit of time. I wanted to get a little bit of research in before I start them. I am currently reading Herman Melville's Moby Dick, and I think I'm just going to get to the halfway point and then set it down so that I can concentrate on my Mexicans and Anglos and get my report done for school. And I've got my eye on you, Werewolf of Paris. I really want to get started with you. I might jump back into Herman Melville's Moby Dick in December, because as I was reading through it, the Pequod, the ship, launched off in December. So I thought it might be cool to just finish that bad boy in December, and give it a bit of a rest. Let it mull around in my head the first half. So far, it's a pretty cool book. And I'm also looking forward to doing different kinds of content. I want to show more of my artwork. I showed a little bit here in this video. But I want to show artwork that's been inspired by literature. I want that to lead into artwork that I'm doing in general. I want to be able to share all of these things because I find it interesting, and hopefully you'll find it interesting as well. I just want to build on this channel, and just, let me know what you guys think. Leave some comments here, and give me an idea of what you like seeing, and I will act accordingly. Awesome. Thank you so much for checking out my book haul video number 2, Electric Boogaloo. I am your host, Adam Rodriguez, here at AWR. I will see you next time. Ciao.